Okay, so we bought you the running backs, and now we have to go to the wide receiver position. Zach is going to bring you his top 30 wide receivers, his final top 30 wide receivers going into the 20.
Time to get to the nitty gritty.
That's right, 23 season, only days away from kickoff, and we're so excited. So we want to make sure we can give you the most updated rankings with as everything has been changing, drops, cuts, pickups, trades, whatever the case may be. It's all happening now for your fantasy league. So let's get straight into it. Take us through your first year. I think there's no surprise who tier one is.
I think tier one. I think most people's tier one is similar. It's just in a different order, right? But Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp is my tier one. You can order these guys however you want to.
Yeah, agreed.
A lot of people will have Jamar Chase as their wide receiver too. I don't see a reason not to have Tyreek as the wide receiver too myself. This is a guy who, when he arrived in that Mike McDaniel system, just dominated the target share. He had 32% of the target share last year. Absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about a wide receiver who could legitimately hit 190, 200 targets this year. It's within the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, wild.
If they lean more on the pass, which, all indications right now with the running back room is that might be the case. So Tyreek Hill, he's talked about wanting to break the 2,000-yard mark. It could be a possibility this year. I'm pretty bullish on him, but I don't hate it if someone would have Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp ahead of them. These are all going to be great receivers.
Yeah, it all just makes sense. Cooper Kupp, I agree in this standing. I'll have Cooper Kupp flip with Jamar Chase. The biggest thing, can Cooper Kupp stay healthy? I hope that is the case. Every single one of these guys, if healthy, when on the field with their quarterbacks, can easily finish as the wide receiver one coming into the 2023 season. I mean, if Tyreek didn't miss a couple games, or Tua didn't miss a couple games, or Cooper Kupp didn't miss the second half of the season, it would have been decimal points how these guys would have been separated to finish as the wide receiver one here. So however way, like Zach said, however way you want to order it, I don't think any wide receiver here is the wrong answer. You just got to hope they don't get injured. I guess.
Yeah, I don't even like having the 101, to be honest, because I feel like if you have the 103 to the 106, there's a chance you get one of these guys, and then you get an earlier pick in the second round. I mean, that's how much I feel confident in those top four.
Yeah, which makes sense. So I like the first tier here. Take us to tier two.
Okay, tier two is a bigger tier. These are guys I feel like, honestly, all these guys, there's 7 of them that you could take in the first round. They're not all going to end up in the first round, but I feel confident in them as my wide receiver one. Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, who was a wide receiver 5 last year.
Yep.
This might surprise some people. Jalen Waddle, I have this high. After finishing my projections, happy to answer any questions.
Sure.
Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, and then Devontae Adams. It's a huge tier. These are all players. Again, I think you can make a case that every one of these guys are deserving of a first-round pick. Most of them will go early second round or mid-second round for like the likes of Adams or Waddle. I'm just a little bit higher on Waddle than like the average person, I guess you could say.
Okay, well, take us through Waddle, and then I have another question, because if I'm not mistaken, I know we had a little bet about Devontae Adams finishing in the top 10. Now, I think if I'm counting top 12. Okay.
That was top 12.
Okay, yeah. And if it's top 12, never mind, because I was like, I don't think he's top 10 over there for you. I think that's 12 or 11.
The bet we made was if Devontae Adams finishes top 12, you got to eat a spoonful of cinnamon.
That's fine.
And if he doesn't, then
that's okay. Okay, I was like, I don't think that's top 10 right there, but
no, still in the top 12.
Still in the top 12. That's all right. So take us through Jalen Waddle. I think everything else here is pretty on point with ADP. Obviously, you guys know I'm a little bit lower on Devontae Adams. I think he's currently ranked my wide receiver 13 in my rankings. But Jalen Waddle, I love that he moved up in your rankings. I do have Wilson, Amon-Ra, A.J. Brown all ahead of Jalen Waddle. So take us through that.
Okay, so here's what's funny. Like, I feel like when I've shown people this, they've been, not you, but just people in general who have shown this, have commented, like, how is that even possible that you have him ahead of these guys? I mean, Waddle last year finished as a wide receiver 8.
Yeah, but didn't he do that last year? I was about to say.
He was a wide receiver 8. Almost 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns. And we're talking about an offense that is, each and every year is throwing the ball more. They should throw the ball more this year. I currently have them projected to be 5th in passing attempts. we've got, a lot of additions on the defense, but most of them are injured, like Jalen Ramsey. So this should be, again, a team that needs to throw the ball a lot to win games. I'm not really worried about Tua being injured. I've given Jalen Waddle 23% of the target share this year. If that sounds high to you, guess what? He had 22% last year. So it doesn't seem that ridiculous for me for, a young elite wide receiver in Jalen Waddle to, take another step as he continues to grow in his NFL career. I have him with 150 targets this year, over just under 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns. I think Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill are going to be absolutely explosive this year. And if you don't get Tyreek in the first, Waddle in the second, like, he is such a no-brainer in my opinion. But connected to a extremely accurate quarterback who has proven that he can make top 10, both of these guys top 10 in fantasy. Exactly. I just think a lot of people are overthinking it with Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I think people are overthinking it. And I think a lot of people think about when you think of Jalen Waddle is that, well, what about Tua if he gets injured, concussions? They even go to that game split. I understand when Tua wasn't in the game.
That's concerning, yeah.
It is concerning. If I'm not mistaken, I actually have it here. When Tua's in the game, Jalen Waddle averaging 16.9 fantasy points per game. When he was out of the game with those four games, 10 fantasy points per game, which is a drastic difference, which I agree. People are concerned about Tua and can he stay healthy? But look, I think I said this in an article on Flock Fantasy. Get over it.
Okay.
Everyone is scared of Tua. Everyone has an injury. Anything can happen throughout the year.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't draft that way. I understand risk aversion, but Jalen Waddle, a guy that's easily going to eat coming into this year. So
yeah, I don't know. Look at it. CeeDee Lamb's up there. No one's complaining about it. Dak missed time last year.
100%.
Jamar Chase is up there. His quarterback's dealing with an injury.
Cooper Kupp.
So it's just, you just can't predict injuries.
You can't.
We don't go into a year predicting an injury for a player that will impact them. But of course, with no Tua, it would be different.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
keep in mind, that Tua was the one that helped Jalen Waddle break the rookie record for reception. So, anyway, I think he's being disrespected. Anyway, tier 3, Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, Amari Cooper, who when I finished my projections, I was surprised how high I was on him.
Okay.
Then we've got T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, and Keenan Allen. And I'll just say, firstly, if you're someone who's watching the video and you're going to comment and say, I stopped the video when I saw you had Devonta Smith too low, there's a reason for tiers. I see these players all very equally valued. Keenan Allen might be the last in the tier, but I think there's a possibility he scores just as much as Calvin Ridley. These guys are all going to be very good for fantasy football. And as we go through these rankings, I would just encourage you guys to keep an open mind. My rankings might not look like yours. They might not look like ADP. But keep in mind that every year when fantasy finishes, if you look at the preseason ADP, it's never how ADP looks. So just keep that in mind, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these wide receivers.
Yeah, look, all makes sense here. Calvin Ridley is definitely a guy that has been rising up my rankings. I have him right behind Devonta Smith right now.
Okay.
I am higher in Devonta Smith. So essentially my tiers here would be Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, and Amari Cooper. But yeah, all these guys have been great. I think the one that I want you to talk about is Amari Cooper. You said he's risen significantly. What are you thinking here? You obviously believing in Deshaun Watson, the bounce back here. What does that look like?
Yeah, so when I finished the projections, he was just one of those names that stood out to me a little bit. Was incredible last year, and Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback.
Yeah.
I just fully believe in a Deshaun Watson recovery to his form, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think he will be what he has been now that he's had an entire offseason to get under the playbook, be with his team, be in meetings, and be the guy the entire time. He's not just stepping in more than halfway through the year and trying to find himself. So a lot of it has to do with the quarterback play. I think the quarterback play is going to be some of the best that Amari's had in his career. I don't think it's crazy to say that it will be just as good as the Dak Prescott era, if not better, as far as quarterback play goes. But Amari Cooper has started out for 159 targets, over 1,200 yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns. He will be the number one. And I've given him 27% of the target share this year, which I don't think is an overreaction. Personally, if you look at last year, he was hovering around 26% of the target share. That was without Deshaun Watson. He's the number one. He proved it last year. And I just think people are scared because of Deshaun Watson, because of the name. Anyone attached to Deshaun Watson, it's just this weird, eerie feeling for people. And I understand, but he's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Keenan Allen, when he came back in the second half of the season, he was leading it. Weeks 12 to 18, averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. He was getting the work. So Keenan Allen easily bounced back if he can stay healthy throughout the whole season. I love Keenan too. I completely agree here with.
I really love Keenan this year. I mean, he's you bring in Kellen Moore.
Boy,
it's gonna open it up. No running back that's really efficient on the ground there. Eckler's great through the air, but this is a team that was top 3 in passing attempts last year. I have them projected to lead the league in passing attempts this year. Mm-hmm. So those Charger receivers are great buys.
Yeah, absolutely, which makes sense. All right, take us to your tier 4.
Okay, so a couple things have changed with this tier 4, and again, like I said, keep in mind it's good to have difference of opinions, and it's good to talk about them. And if my rankings, if I just brought you a list of ADP, it would be boring. But this is where DK Metcalf is, who I was lower on before the JSN injury. I really was concerned about the target share and what that might mean adding a first-round wide receiver in JSN. Now it seems JSN will probably miss, all the doctors that I have watched and researched are saying he's probably back week 4 or 5.
Yeah,
that's significant. When you're drafting and knowing it's just DK and Tyler for the first 4 weeks, most likely, that should give you a lot more confidence. Yeah. DJ Moore, who small pie, but a huge amount of that pie in Chicago, and this might be surprising for people, but Chris Godwin, then DK's teammate Tyler Lockett, and then scary Terry McLaurin. So DK and Tyler Lockett, 2 big risers for me as I'm finalizing my rankings heading into the year.
Okay, yeah, look, DK makes sense. I think the biggest thing here when you think of JSN is he going to get on the pup? A lot of teams, what they like to do, I think this video will probably be out after, team cuts, whenever that is. So you might already know this information. But if they put Jason on the pup list, meaning he's going to miss the first 4 games going into the season, I completely agree rising up DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then really reevaluating how much JSN is going to be producing coming into week 1. And maybe DK Metcalf is going to be on one of our sell high videos throughout the season as JSN kind of comes in and starts taking these targets that we kind of saw coming in to 2023. So I completely agree there. DJ Moore, a guy that I love. He's my guy this year for me. Genuinely, I love DJ Moore and everything that he's going to be doing. We saw the glimpses of preseason even before Justin Fields, what we believe in that he can do, the step that we believe he's going to take. I mean, we've been roasted so much for Justin Fields, but I kind of think of the same pathway. You think of Josh Allen getting Stephon Diggs. You think of Jamar, Kirk Cousins getting Justin Jefferson, Jalen Hurts getting A.J. Brown. This is what's happening here in the Chicago Bears is DJ Moore. So I love him right here. It makes complete sense.
And I'll just say, by the way, like betting on DJ Moore this year is betting on change, which we see every year. The 100%. Reason that people are going to tell you not to bet on DJ Moore is because last year, the Chicago Bears were the lowest passing volume offense. That was last year. Mm-hmm. Things have changed, right? Like every year, offenses change with context involved. Context being the offensive line improves. Justin Fields takes another step. Mm-hmm. You add in DJ Moore. While I don't think it will be as drastic as like the AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs moves, I still think he's a good bet to bet on. You want to bet on change, situations and atmospheres that have changed. So
makes sense. All right, and I think the biggest one here, I guess there's 2 other ones that I want to talk about. Chris Olave. I'm not a big believer in Chris Olave.
Olave?
Sorry,
Godwin.
Chris Godwin. I'm not a big believer in Chris Olave in this Bucs team here with Baker Mayfield. Chris Godwin. I keep saying Chris Olave. Chris Godwin, not a big believer with him and Baker Mayfield. If you really go back to the history with Baker Mayfield and how he has produced a top wide receiver, only has been 1 year where he's finished or produced a top 15 wide receiver, and that was Jarvis Landry in 2018, 2019, around that year. I just can't bank on Chris Godwin and Baker Mayfield, in this ADP. What number do you have Chris Godwin here?
He's my wide receiver 20, I believe.
Oh, it's difficult. It's difficult for me to see him being that high with Baker Mayfield, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chris Godwin, wide receiver 19 last year.
I heard myself just then. Keep saying Chris Olave. Continue.
Did I say Olave?
No, I said Olave again, if I'm not mistaken. But continue.
Oh, okay. Wide receiver 19 last year, barely over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And I think 3 touchdowns. So that's not like. Ask yourself right now: do you think Chris Godwin? You're doing it to me now. Can Chris Godwin get 1,000 yards and 3 touchdowns this year? Yeah, I think it's possible. I think that would be a disappointment if he doesn't reach that number. And I just have him absolutely dominating the target share here. To me, I'm more concerned about Mike Evans than I am about Chris Godwin. I know that Baker Mayfield is a pretty decent deep ball thrower, but everything over the middle of the field is going to go straight to Chris Godwin. And it only helps his case that the person who was maybe going to play a slightly similar role is now gone in Russell Gage. Russell Gage is not going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. So who the hell can you throw the ball to here? It's Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. That's really it. I've got 162 targets for Chris Godwin, over 1,100 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So it's not like I'm giving him a 10 touchdown year or anything. He's going to be on a bad team that's going to have to throw the ball a lot. And we're talking about an offensive line that's probably not going to be able to make you a run heavy team. So Chris Godwin, to me, I think he's just a safe bet. I don't think he's a top 10 player, but I think he's a safe top 20 play each week.
Okay. That's fair. I guess it's all going to depend, in my opinion, lean on Baker Mayfield coming into this year. So we'll wait and see what happens. And there could be a quarterback change. You never know what Kyle Trask. Maybe that helps Chris Godwin into this year. And then the last player.
Baker's looked good.
He's looked good. He's looked good for sure. Last player I want to talk about is Terry. Obviously has that toe turf injury.
Yeah.
Another player I believe could be in the same boat as JSN. I don't know about the doctors you've been hearing. Can he get on the pub? Are you still drafting him here? If that does happen, obviously, we may know this by the time this video is out. But if people are watching this now and that information is still not out, do we risk aversion here with Terry, or do you still draft him at where he's going right now?
Okay, so the injury is a concern for sure. I think my ranking is more of a projection of what he will finish the year as. So maybe this is not exactly where you want to draft him. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can trade for him a little bit lower. I think he'll be full go week 2, but I don't think he'll be 100% himself. I think he'll be like 95% himself. What I will say is in this offense, as a Washington fan, all the beat reporters that I have heard is, yes, Jahan Dotson looked great, and he's going to be very good. I love Jahan Dotson. We'll talk about him soon. But Terry's still the guy. He's still the number one. He's going to get the most targets in this offense. So long term, I do think that Terry still finishes as the number one on this team. But, I mean, just an insight into the next tier, I only have about 6 targets between the two, between Terry and Jahan Dotson this year. So it is close. It is close for me at the end of the season. And that's just accounting for I've given him about two games that he could miss with that target share. But still one of the best wide receivers, top 12 receiver talent-wise. Sam Howell's looked decent. And he is the leader of this team. He's always been the consistent player, the stand-up guy. So when he's back, I am concerned a little bit about the injury. I can't pretend like I'm a doctor, but this ranking is more where I think he will finish rather than maybe what his value will be, let's say, week 1.
That's fair. All right, before we get into Tier 5, flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what we do here. If you want to get Zach's rankings, updated rankings weekly, my rankings updated weekly, articles, bonus content, and so much more, flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Take us to your Tier 5.
Okay, Tier 5. Again, things are going to get weird, so hang on with me.
Here we go.
We've got a rookie here. The first rookie, Jordan Addison here in tier number 5. I believe my wide receiver 24. I'll have to double check, but I believe he's my wide receiver 24 or 23 rather. Mike Williams after that, DeAndre Hopkins, Debo Samuel, and then Jahan Dotson is a 49ers sandwich here. And then we've got Christian Watson and Drizzy Drake London. I love this tier 5. I genuinely think we could see a top 12 finish from any of these players. Seriously, like I look at this list and I'm like, yeah, if the right situation hits,
happens, yeah.
One of these guys could be top 12.
I hear you.
Right? If Terry's injury is more serious than I thought, could be top 12. Brandon Ayuk was a wide receiver 15 last year. We know how explosive Christian Watson is. We know how talented Drake London is. Mm-hmm. We've seen Debo Samuel be a top 5 guy. And DeAndre Hopkins has a history. Mike Williams in that explosive passing offense. So, I mean, this is a fun tier to draft, honestly. If you get any of these guys as your wide receiver 3s, it feels really good.
Yeah, 100%. You know, outside of the first 3, Addison, Mike, D-Hop, all those guys are going, are getting a second-year quarterback. Jordan Love, well, not really Jordan Love, but, Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, and then I guess you can quote-unquote say Jordan Love finally getting his opportunity here. So there's some hidden upside, we hope, coming into this year. A bit risky, but, we're going based off the talent for each and every one of these wide receivers, Jahan, Ayuk, Watson, London, and even Debo. Obviously, we know what he can do. So, yeah, I completely agree here in tier 5. I like everyone here. I would say I'm not confident. I think I'm confident drafting. I am confident. Not that I think. I am confident drafting every single one after Mike Williams. So Mike Williams will be probably the last person in this tier for me.
Okay.
But yeah, look, I understand Mike.
So you would have Mike Williams last in this tier.
Last in this tier, exactly. And obviously he did miss some time. He didn't have the best year this past year. Finished wide receiver 32. Obviously had some injury concerns, and now you get Quentin Johnston in the mix. I feel like Quentin can easily take a lot of opportunities. If there's somebody that's going to be eating opportunities from the person that's going to be affected, I think that's going to be Mike over Keenan.
I don't disagree. I think I talked about this with Minnesota a little bit when we did the running back rankings video yesterday. Mm-hmm. There are certain offenses where the pie is so large that you just want a piece of that offense. And when you do your projections, you look at it and you're like, wow, there's going to be a lot of good fantasy players from this offense. I talked about that with Minnesota. That's why you see Jordan Addison up there along with his talent. But also Mike Williams. I don't know if I think I said this when we talked about Keenan, but I have the Chargers projected to throw the most pass attempts of any team in the NFL this year. Mm-hmm. If that actually becomes a reality, Mike Williams is going to be a value wherever he is. And probably Quentin Johnston will. I think there's a chance that there's 3 1,000-yard receivers out of this offense.
Look it up.
I'm a big fan of drafting any of these Charger receivers. If you can't get Keenan early, get Mike Williams as your wide receiver 3. If you can't get Mike there, get Quentin as your wide receiver 5. I'm a big fan of just getting in this offense. And maybe that you get where I'm coming from. I guess from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Highest passing offense projected. You want to get a piece of the pie without a doubt. So completely makes sense. I don't have any disagreements here. I would say DeAndre Hopkins has moved down my board since a lot of people have been moving up my rankings. So I'm really, I feel bad.
And that's something that we disagreed upon.
We did. DeAndre Hopkins moved down. So I had DeAndre Hopkins high. I had him over DJ, over Terry, over Jordan at one point, over Jahan. Right. I do have DeAndre Hopkins right ahead of Christian Watson now and Drake London in my rankings. So
I think he's gonna be exciting for people until Treylon comes back. And I'm not saying Treylon's gonna take over. That's not what I'm saying at all. Mm-hmm. What I am saying is I think it will be up and down once they're both on the field. So it concerns me a little bit, especially in a low passing volume offense. And what I believe is a very talented wide receiver who's going to break out in Treylon Burks, but he'll still be the number 1 there. So that's what you can bank on. You get a number 1 wide receiver in an offense as your wide receiver 3. Yeah,
makes sense. All right, tier 6, take us through it.
Okay, tier 6. We'll start with Christian Kirk. You could say discount Calvin. It's interesting, like I can go through all the projections, all the numbers, look at what the team has done historically, and Christian Kirk is always going to return value on his ADP. Like it just does. I don't see a way it doesn't happen, even though I can't rank him higher than some of these other names.
I agree.
A big name that people will want to talk about is Jerry Jeudy. Mm-hmm. This is where I would have him ranked. Then George Pickens. Oddly enough, then Brandon Cooks, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. I will say, I think Brandon Cooks is one of the best values in wide receiver drafts right now. If you can get him as your wide receiver 4, you should feel absolutely fantastic about this.
That's right.
We're talking about a wide receiver who has produced big numbers his entire career on multiple different teams. So, and someone that you could actually start while he was a Houston Texan. When he was playing, you could start him in your flex. Now he goes to the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to throw the ball a lot. He's clearly a big upgrade over Michael Gallup. He'll stretch the field. He'll complement CeeDee Lamb really, really well. When you look at that Dallas offense, again, they're going to be one of the top half passing offenses in the league. As much as I love Tony Pollard, I can recognize they're going to throw the ball a lot. And I've given Brandon Cooks about 19% of the target share there, which gives him 123 targets on the year, just under 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. So I think he's going to end up being a big, big value. Just a guy who's consistently producing in a great offense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I'm not necessarily. I mean, I've just drafted Brandon Cooks in one of our home leagues, so I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to see what he can do on my team. I agree with Christian Kirk. I've been preaching this all off season. Calvin really been rising up rankings as your wide receiver 1, which makes sense. But if I can get somebody who just finished as a wide receiver 12 this past year with getting over 130 targets this past year as well, I think Trevor Lawrence, especially with the big step I believe Trevor Lawrence is going to take, I can see him producing 2 top 15 fantasy finishes coming into the end of 2023, and you're getting Christian Kirk here, a wide receiver 25 plus, which feels really, really comfortable. So I love Christian Kirk being there.
It's a safe play, like
100%.
He's not going to like win you weeks per se, I wouldn't say, but he's not going to lose you weeks either. Like he's just a really safe guy who's going to end up being higher than we realize.
Yeah, and obviously Jerry Jeudy out with that injury. According to reports, is going to miss multiple weeks. Somebody I believe that the team is going to put on IR on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks. He's going to miss the first four weeks. We don't have that information as we record this video right now. But where are you comfortable taking him? Because I have seen a couple different strategies, which I might be comfortable with taking him as my wide receiver 3 if you were going high, like let's say you got, Cooper Kupp and Amon-Ra St. Brown, or Stephon Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you get Jerry Jeudy in the 4th round. I'm happy to take that chance knowing that Jerry's going to come back and still, produce higher than his ADP at that area, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if he ends up being your wide receiver 4 or 5, then it's a no-brainer. I've done something similar with JSN recently. I got Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin. Then I actually got Terry McLaurin and JSN. So as my wide receiver 4 and 5. And, the bet is just that the players that I've chosen will help me win a couple games. And then when those guys are back, I'll be unstoppable. So, again, Jerry's another guy who's a reflection more of a season-long prediction rather than like what returns you'll see in the first 4 weeks of the year. Because I do believe when he's back, he will be the number 1.
Yeah.
And he'll be a value. He'll be a huge buy low.
He will be. I mean, in our Alpha League, shout out to Billy Spriggs. He took him at the 7-6 as his wide receiver 4.
Yeah.
Incredible value there.
Wouldn't touch him in the 6th, but definitely 7th becomes really comfy.
Of value. Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Take us to your tier 7.
Okay. Here in tier 7, my beloved Treylon Burks starts the tier.
Here we go.
Man, I felt like we were getting ready to see something really special with Treylon Burks this year. Even with DeAndre Hopkins, the drumbeat was loud, and people were joining the hype train with me. And then the injury occurred. The good news is that I feel like the injury occurred when it should have, if that made sense. Like the Jerry Jeudy injury, the JSN injury, like those were devastating because they're definitely eating into the season. I still think there's a chance Treylon plays week 1. Like I think there's a legitimate chance. If he does, he absolutely will be a steal where he's being drafted. I have no doubts in my mind. Ultra talent, dominant profile, 1st round talent out of Arkansas. Bet on the talent with that guy. Then I have Sky Moore, which really surprised me how high I had him. Juju Smith-Schuster is no longer in Kansas City, and he played slot for the Chiefs most of the time last year. I don't think Sky will exclusively be the slot guy, but he will be the highest percentage of snaps from that team in the slot.
Right.
And that's going to be very valuable with the Kansas City Chiefs. If there's any receiver I'm betting on, it's not Tony. It's actually Sky Moore. But I will say, still, I don't think there's a top 15 ceiling amongst any of those wide receivers, unless Travis Kelce goes down. Then Deontay Johnson, who I might be too low on, I understand. Marquise Brown. And then to finish off, Mike Evans, who, again, you can clearly see I'm more worried about Mike Evans than Chris Godwin, given that there's 3 tiers between them for me in my rankings.
Yeah, look, all makes sense. Treylon Burks, if he does play week 1, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see him. I think he is a phenomenal value right now in Dynasty. So that's really exciting. Sky Moore, I'm believing in the boost here with Patrick Mahomes. Deontay Johnson, I guess, is somebody that I kind of want to talk about. Didn't have the best season this past year, but one of the biggest caveats that I always say, had 147 targets this past year, but 0 touchdowns. Hard to see him repeating that again. I do believe in the breakout in George Pickens, but I also believe in the breakout in Kenny Pickett. And right now, there was a point in time where I didn't like where people were taking George Pickens ahead of Deontay Johnson. Now I'm okay with it. I think they should be back-to-back in the rankings. They are back-to-back in my rankings.
Right.
Hard to see him not finishing within the top, I would say top 20 potentially. And that's high praise, right? And that's me really high praising Kenny Pickett. And, what we've been seeing in preseason, to be completely honest, how much more comfortable he's been, how he's distributing the ball, the offensive line getting significantly better. So, someone like Deontay Johnson, I would take him as high as tier 5, to be completely honest with you. I have him higher than, without Jerry Jeudy's injury, I do have him higher than Christian Kirk at this very moment. But this is your rankings. Just wanted to put my 2 cents in there.
No, I understand.
So yeah, that's where I have.
I don't think it's abnormal for people to be higher on Deontay than myself. At the end of the day, you have to cram so many good wide receivers into a rankings. Yeah. This is where Deontay ended up in my projections. I've given him 23% of the target share over there in Pittsburgh. So I am projecting that the target share maybe drops a little bit because of the emergence of a George Pickens. At the end of the day, Pat Freiermuth is going to get his, Deontay Johnson is going to get his, and all indications are pointing us towards a George Pickens breakout. I would argue that if you say who's a more talented player already, I think Pickens is a more talented guy.
Yeah.
I think Pickens can do more with less targets. I've got 134 targets for Deontay and 123 for Pickens, but I think Pickens is going to do more with those targets than Deontay will. If you average out Deontay's catch percentage over the last 4 years, and keep in mind, 3 of those years was with Big Ben, where he was getting, these little dump offs, screens, slants. It should be a much higher catch percentage than this, but he's averaging a 62% catch percentage over the last 4 years. I've given him about 63%. So I've done everything I can in my projections to give him respect. At the end of the day, I just think there's a George Pickens breakout coming, and there's not much that we can do about it. And we have to expect that he has less targets, a lower target percentage than he's had last year. I just expect that coming into this season.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess just to round it off, put in my 2 cents, I love Elijah Moore. I think he's in my top 30. Understand that. And Zay Flowers, I think, not saying you're disrespecting, but I think the fantasy community has been massively disrespecting Zay Flowers. I think I will not be surprised by the end of this season if he finishes as a top 25 wide receiver. That will not surprise me. And I think
it wouldn't surprise me either. Yeah. I think ranking him is really tough. I technically have Zay Flowers as the number 1 receiver in target share. But like OBJ is not there for nothing. Rashad Bateman's still a first-round talent. Mm-hmm. I think Zay Flowers does win out, but I think it's very close. I have them all over 100 targets. But, if OBJ goes down or if Rashad isn't the player we thought he could be, then maybe Zay steps into more. At the end of the day, Mark Andrews is the number 1 receiver there.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know any disagreements you have, because I know you guys will definitely will. And we'll see you in the next one.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.